Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name's Roy Paquette, and yet I know you know that. Folks, I just like to remind myself of exactly how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair. You folks have made my life amazing, and I try every day to bring a little bit of light and sunshine to yours as well. You folks have really showed up for us. When we went to 5 days, you came through. When we went to 7 days, you blew it up. And now our Sunday episodes are, as of the date of this recording, our number one episode of the week last week, which was just crazy and beautiful and wonderful. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. If you're not out there liking and sharing and doing everything you're doing, then I can't do what I'm doing over here in this chair. You folks are amazing. And if you're friends of the program, and I know you are, then you know what's coming. That's right. We got to pay a couple of bills. Let's talk about our sponsor, and let me make sure that I get a sip of my preferred beverage. Oh, yeah. That is good stuff right there. And you all know what we're drinking. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of Joe. It's an absolutely fantastic cup of coffee, folks. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them. If you're a veteran out there, folks, thank you for your service. We love you, and we're glad that you found a home here with the Power Man podcast. Look them up, check them out. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, and tell them Power Man sent you. I need to get another sip of this so I can keep up with this guy across the table from me, and you'll know why in a minute. All right, we will be drinking that through the entire program because old boy's getting a little long in the tooth over here, and I'm talking to that's right, five-time Ironman, executive coach and mentor, helping leaders find clarity, live their values, and lead with purpose and impact. He's the founder of the Arcqus Group, and he's the host of a very good podcast, Leadership Unlocked, the stories that shape great leaders. Please welcome to the show, Dusty Holcomb. Dusty, how you doing, brother?
I am good, and man, I'm gonna have to get some of that Freedom Hill coffee. That's looking
It's
so
it's
good to be
amazing.
here.
I appreciate you. It is amazing coffee, so don't hesitate, man. Go get some.
I will go get some. I love in your intro you're talking about veterans. And my first mentor was a retired full bird, and he taught me the value of black coffee at 0 dark 30 for our team meetings. And man, ever since then, I've never looked back. There's nothing like a good cup of Joe.
Yep, absolutely, and it's got to be black. You
Got
can't
to,
put all that stuff in
no, it's got to be black.
it. Absolutely. All right, Dusty. I mean, I told everybody a whole lot about you, and I know we're going to dig into a lot of this, but give everybody an idea of who's Dusty Holcomb, what's your story, and how'd you end up here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to figure it out myself. I have spent my entire life trying to learn how to be a better human, a better dad, a better leader. And I like the whole mindset that John Maxwell talks about, that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So it's not about title, it's not about role, it's not about authority. It's about the ability to create a positive influence on the lives of others. And my journey started being homeschooled. I went to school for a couple years, and I wouldn't say I failed out, but we lived in a really rural part of Georgia. So it was an hour bus drive each way. And my parents said, "Hey, this is too much. We're going to uh, we're going to homeschool you." And so my entire education from fifth grade forward was the books I read. We didn't have any formal structure. This is way before homeschooling was cool, and there was a process and a structure. I remember
Hmm.
seeing my mom turning in these uh, curriculum sheets and me looking at them going, "We didn't do any of that. We didn't do any of that stuff. Like, I just read whatever I wanted to read," which for me were history books. I love to read military history. I probably read every single book that had been published in our local small town library on World War II, on the Vietnam War. And so I really studied that. So how did I get to here? It started with a great passion for learning to read, realizing later that, an autodidactic learning style where I taught myself did two great things. It gave me a really broad breadth of understanding, and it put an incredible chip on my shoulder about being the dumb guy, because when I had to get a GED, I went and met with a college counselor who said, admissions counselor, Dusty, not everybody's cut out for college. Maybe you should consider a trade school, or perhaps even just go straight into one of the trades.
Wow.
So those are the seeds that planted. And then I've just had the incredible privilege of embracing a life mission given to me by that mentor, Colonel Camp, who taught me three things. First and foremost, your job is to take care of the people that. Number two is to make sure they understand what the mission is. And number three is to make sure that the customer understands that you care. If you do those three things in that order, you'll be successful. And he taught me that lesson at 21 years old. Never forgotten it.
Nice. Nice. Absolutely. All right. Sorry, you froze for a minute, but we're powering through it. We're good to
We're
go.
powering through.
Yeah, no, we got you. I love that. This is now you're a former CEO, okay, as
Correct.
part of your thing. So one thing that I always wonder, somebody's, sitting there, your CEO is not a small job.
It
So,
is not.
you've reached a certain level of success to be a CEO in whatever it is, even if it's your own company, selling t-shirts, right? But you're a former CEO, you're learning corporate culture. And you've hit the top, basically. And so, what makes somebody go, this is great, all this success and and everything. But man, I really just want to go off on my own and hang my own shingle and you know what, live live by the seat of my pants and by what I can go out and hunt and kill and bring back to the cave. What makes somebody do that? Have you just got an entrepreneurial streak in you or what?
Well, I'd like to think it's an entrepreneurial streak, but it's probably just that I'm dumber than the average guy and, have this
Okay.
this relentless desire to prove myself. I mentioned that chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Roy, it's a great question. Uh, I had the privilege of doing what I do, which is serving leaders in a corporate environment for almost 28 years and loved it. In fact, had tremendous success. The teams did, got to be, the CEO of, nine-figure companies. But the challenge with that was I felt like everything I was built and born to do from a purpose perspective was to empower the success of others. I was able to do that in the corporate environment. Like that's my personal mission statement. It has been since 21 years old because I'd always been an entrepreneur. I was always the guy inside the corporate organizations who would take the greenfield idea and scale it. And my entire career was around scaling things, building things bigger, better, faster to be an entrepreneur. I was the guy who would like if I and one's a startup and one's a big established one and the products are good, I'm going to go patronize the startup because I love supporting that guy. I love supporting that organization. And, I've got tons of stories I could tell about that. So when I exited my last role, it was the second time I almost thought about starting my business. And this time I was like, you know what? I'm pretty faith driven. And he said, I don't need to be in charge. God, I want you to put me on your path and on your purpose. I can go be the CEO. I can go do that again. Like that's always there. But where do you want to put me to positively impact the lives of others and to do so in a purpose driven, meaningful way where I can be my true, authentic self and trust will deliver what I need to provide and care for my family. And so I'm going to take that leap and I'm going to take that step and I'm going to put others first because that's what I'm passionate about. And honestly, Rory, if I'm being really honest, some of it is fear that if I don't do this, that I am sub optimizing what God has given me. And one day I'm going to have to answer for that. Like, here's what you could have done. Here's what you.
And we're back. Sorry, folks. Had a little technical difficulty there, but we got him back. We're not losing Dusty today. There's no way I'm losing a five-time Ironman and a CEO who, went and did his own thing. And no. Not with everything else he's got going on. So, all right, Dusty, you had just said, and it was a very powerful moment before, we lost it, but you had just said that one of the biggest reasons why you made that transition was because of fear. And so if you want to go ahead and start from there, brother, go for it.
Yeah, it was fear based on the fact that I knew that God had given me gifts and that I could go do the gig. I could go be a CEO, but I don't want to one day find out that this is what I was actually designed to do, meant to do, supposed to do. And I needed to be and actively demonstrate faith, to trust. And there were all the signs. Sometimes, I'm like a lot of people, too busy to listen. But all when I actually slow down and pause and listen, it's like all these things are happening for a reason, and I'm supposed to do this. And as a person who lives my entire life based on purpose and fulfilling purpose, I felt that if I didn't hear or heed the call that I was feeling from inside, not from outside, that I would be honestly a charlatan and not following through on what I tell and teach. So it was fear.
Wow. I in all the research I did, getting ready for this and looking you up and listening to some episodes of your podcast and stuff, I didn't realize that faith was so not only important to you, but was at the center of all this.
Yeah, it is. And it's been like all people, a faith journey. And I'm quick to tell folks, so like I put faith at the center of our core values on my organization for myself. And I always tell people, it's not because you have to believe what I believe. It's because I want you to understand who I am and what I believe and how I'm going to show up. And I invite two things. One's a conversation if you're ever curious. Two is for you to call me out if I ever act in a way that is incongruent with what I've said I believe, because I'm going to invite that conversation because sometimes we all lose our way and you need to have somebody check you.
I love that because you're walking into the situation and you're reducing any, discomfort on their part, and you're also throwing down the gauntlet and setting the expectation on your part.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
leadership is walking the talk, and I, like every other person, fall short on a daily basis. So you've got to be able to have somebody that will call you out.
Nice. Nice. Now, the Arcus Group is what you've founded. Okay. Tell everybody a little bit about that, what you do through that, how.
Yeah, so Arcus Group, leadership consulting firm, and what we do is we help leaders really dig deep and identify what's most important. Because I have this firm belief that if you lead yourself first, that's what allows you and enables you to lead teams and allows and enables you to lead organizations.
Hmm.
But in order to do that, you've got to really go deep within yourself and understand where you are so you can work on where you need to be. And that doing that is what creates an amazing amount of influence on and for others. And so that's why I founded the company. It was an idea many years in the making, and I'm pretty quirky and OCD. Even the name is meant to be a reminder for myself of what's important. And so arc is the Latin for arch, which is the strongest of the ancient architectural designs, and cus is who. And within the arch, the most important element is the keystone. And so the name is to remind me every time I say it, who is the keystone? The leadership is the keystone. And then within my logo, I have a cross on the keystone. And it's to remind me principally that it's not about me. Who is the keystone? When we work on ourselves as leaders, when we work on the things that are important, we are enabling impact for others. And it's not selfish. And I think that that's the thing that I have to work with leaders most often is setting aside time to do the deep work. Working on yourself is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of selflessness, because if you don't do it well, how can you expect anybody else to? So that was the whole genesis behind it. And we work with leaders and leadership cohorts to help them, build a leadership operating system that lets them get to where they want to be.
Nice. Nice. I love the way you're doing it. I think this is a component that is left out of leadership way too often. I think people just sort of go out there and they're teaching a technique or they're
Mm.
teaching how to, deal with people, and personality types, and that's all great. I know that all comes into it. But if you have a hole in your own foundation, then as soon as the wind blows hard, I mean, you're the one who's going to collapse. And then where are you? So I love that you're addressing that first. I'm dying to know, how is that met with the leaders that you work with when they have to identify their own weaknesses first?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So when we do leadership impact accelerators, these are 12-person cohorts where we walk through these programs. And when we do this, the first module that we go through is self-leadership, which is personality behavior profiling and a bunch of other things
Mm.
to really identify who you are, what you're good at, where those gaps are. The second module is always the first one. This is getting right to your question. I ask everybody to go deep and go and articulate beyond making money, what is your purpose as a leader? What's your why? And Simon Sinek wrote the amazing book, Start with Why. There's lots of research that shows that when you identify that you're able to then articulate a whole host of other things. And it really links into, like, I'm very intentional. So everything builds, and it links into your ability to connect dots, because I think that that's the best leaders are extremely adept at connecting dots for those they serve. And so if you want to connect dots and unlock discretionary effort, then you've got to be able to do it for yourself first. So it's the way it's met is typically, I've never thought about it that way. I've never thought about how important it is for me to articulate why I'm here beyond making money. That then builds to, okay, well, what's your vision? What's your vivid, articulate, like, detailed vision for yourself, your life, your leadership, your impact over 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, et cetera. And so when people start doing that, one of the most profound things that I've found in working with leaders is they often come back and say, I wrote a 10-year vision, and I realized when I look back at my purpose statement that my 10-year vision, well, frankly, was kind of chicken and weak. And I think I can do it in 5, or I think I can do it in 3. And so that's the unlock. Now, for people that aren't wired that way, or that, there's nothing wrong with this. I don't say this is a value statement, but they're all about self and not about others. It's a harder road to hoe. Like, it's a more difficult challenge, but I haven't found the leaders that I work with who come in wired that way already, with it, knowing that they need to improve their own game if they want to play at the highest level. It's always met with, I'm ready to do the work. I'm going to dig in.
Excellent. I mean, that's awesome. That's how they come to you. The is the business model more of like a CEO is sending you his management type of thing, or is it the leader themselves going, "I need help, help me out"?
It's both. I actually
Is it?
have both. Yeah. So we have, but I'll say this, the CEOs that are sending their team have been through it themselves.
Oh, nice. Okay,
So
there you
they,
go.
like, my vision is to build the number one success platform for purpose-driven, value-centric leaders. I said that's what I want to build. And but it is both people who are saying, I recognize that in order to get to where I am, I need to change. And so therefore, this seems to be the right way. This is a process. Because, what I realize is that people can read books and study podcasts and all this great stuff. You're going to retain and activate on about 10% of it. It doesn't matter what it is, you're going to get about 10%. So
Sure.
you need time and space to do it. You need a system. You need a process flow. You need a system that you can install and pull from. And you need people to do it with. And I think that that's the greatest value of what we do is we take like-minded leaders, and we don't just make it where they work with me or one of the coaches. They work with each other. And so we have these cohort models. Well, we had a call with the group yesterday where they're sharpening each other. Somebody brings an issue. Here's something I'm struggling with. And it's not just me sounding in, it's the other leaders who've said, well, I've seen it from this lens, or I've heard it from that angle. And it creates this compelling, dynamic conversation, which is far bigger than I could ever do. And I had this, it's iron sharpening iron, and it's exponential. And so, and I think that's more than just what I do. I think that that is life, right? There's this thesis, and I don't know whether it's still scientifically sound, but you are the reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Sure.
Well, one of my great mentors shared with me is like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And so if you curate with intentionality the people you surround yourself, like, you don't have to go through a program like mine in order to do that, but you do need to take stock and inventory of the things that you ingest, the relationships you sharpen with, if you really want to be impactful. And I think that most people, and I don't say this as an indicting tone because I'm guilty of this as well. Most people, most of the time, spend life in a reactive mode. We react to the environment, the situation, whatever. And I think that that's okay if you're able to do, what Viktor Frankl talked about is the ability to insert a pause to choose your response. But your ability to choose a response is dependent purely on your ability to have done the work ahead of time to say what's important, so that you can have a circuit breaker that prevents you from reacting in an emotional state, but you can react with an intentional emotional state. And those are just like the little tiny nuances and paradigms that I think are so important, not just for leadership, but for influence, because that's what leadership is.
Hmm. Love that. Love that. Everything that you're teaching is leading by example, then. I mean, to not to break it down too simply, but everything does center around leading by example. And um, my understanding of servant leadership, you mentioned servant leadership. What does
Mm.
that mean to you, and how do you implement that with the men that you coach and women?
Yeah, it is leading by example because the full stop, yes, 100% agreement there. Servant leadership is recognizing and I love that you said not to make it too simple because I think that is one of the hallmarks of a great leader is the ability to distill to the essence of what matters because you've got to be able to connect those dots again. And servant leadership at its core is realizing that it isn't about you. It's
Mm,
not about what it's going to do for you. It's what it's going to do for the customer. It's what it's going to do for the business. It's what it's going to do for the family. It's what it's going to do for that individual. And you can be an incredible servant leader and make somebody available to go work somewhere else, and you're serving them. And so you have to make sure that you're recognizing that if you don't want to deal with conflict, for example, and you don't want to have that kind but hard conversation, that you are not creating service for that person. So servant leadership for me is understanding that it's not about you. It's about your person, the people you're serving, which is about the customer. And I got that from Colonel Camp, at 21 years old when he said, take care of your soldiers. He's a guy, retired full bird, West Pointer, Vietnam veteran. If you take care of your soldiers, they will take care of the mission. So you have to do that. And the mission's paramount. Like that's why you have to make sure that you have the right people on the team. But servant leadership for me, and it's all about understanding in order to achieve this mission, I have to take care of the people. It's not about me.
just wow. Okay. I love that men are buying into this. So now you do coach men and women, I assume.
Yes, very much so. In fact,
Okay.
about 40% of our cohorts are women.
Okay. And the only reason I ask that is because, on my podcast, I have 90% men
Mm.
listenership. So I normally default to the men pronoun and that type of thing. So I don't want anybody who's listening to this for your sake to think that I'm saying you only lead men. But it's just
Understood fully.
my vernacular. Anybody listening out there, it's not Dusty. This is me. All right. So direct the hate over here. But no, the fact of the matter is I love the fact that any of the people who are coming into your program are understanding these things, and yeah, servant leadership is about who you serve, and you're leading by example. And I think this is just fantastic. Now, here's a question that has been rolling around in my head as I've been listening to this too, and that is, you also lead by example. I mean, that's a big crux of your program. So I'm wondering, is that what drew you to, being a five-time Ironman because you're trying to be the best you can be and you want to lead by example for others? Or was there some other, crazy thing like, hey, I'm this huge guy and I just want to go beat myself up?
Yeah, probably a little bit of all of those things. It's interesting. It's the an external motivation to set an example for others will never be as powerful as the intrinsic motivation to get through something. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it for yourself? So, doing an Ironman race is a selfish act. I mean, it's hard on your family. It's hard on, those around you. I mean, you're training 20 hours a week for the 12 weeks going into a race. It's selfish. And so it's probably the antithesis of, really being a good servant leader. But I got into it and chose to do it because I needed to challenge myself. I'm a person who, when people say you can't do something, like my college admissions counselor, like, okay, here you go. I went back and saw him 4 years later when I graduated, summa cum laude, and said, here you go. But somebody said, big guys, I'm 6'4", 230 pounds. I'm a linebacker, not an elite endurance athlete. And I was never elite. But I said, big people can't do this. And I went, that's interesting. This is not about the body. This is about the mind. How do you channel this? And so the greatest lesson that I ever learned racing Ironman was that the mind can go into such a stronger, deeper, darker place. I've learned more about myself on the backside of an Ironman marathon than almost anywhere else in life because you just have to set a goal and you can mentally achieve it. And the coolest thing was the race itself was the reward. It was never the actual, you know, challenge. It was the reward for having done all the hard work. So it was a little bit selfish, a little bit of a challenge, to myself and of myself to prove that I could do something, and then enable me to overcome that. You're not worthy. You're not able to. And it's like,
Wow.
okay, that's why I did it.
Nice.
And
I
I'm not
mean,
very smart.
we almost got through a question without you saying you're dumb.
I got to be careful. People are going to start believing it.
I mean, that's like four times, brother. You got, but now let me ask you this. This is a little off track, but on this thing where you're constantly self-deprecating, you're talking about how dumb you are. Clearly, you're not. All right. I mean, CEO and running your own place and doing everything you're doing. Obviously you weren't. But is that a way to keep yourself in check, to stay humble, or keep your edge? Maybe you don't want to lose that chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. I think it is a recognition that there's always somebody bigger, faster, smarter. And you know, if you're going to be the CEO of the company, if you're going to run an organization, your first and foremost job is to be the dumbest guy in the room. Your first and foremost job is to get really smart people who are passionately committed to a cause, who believe what you believe from a culture and core values perspective, aligned to that vision. And so you need to embrace an abject humility that you don't have all the answers, that you don't know everything, that you are willing to be wrong. I used to tell every leadership team, and I still tell people this to this day. I have zero interest in being right, but I am 100% interested in doing what is right. And so, like, yeah, for me, it's self-deprecating, is to remind myself that I'm not the smartest guy in the room and I shouldn't be the smartest guy in the room. I need to get the smartest people in the room and have great conversations and listen to their answers. Like, not just, hey, I'm not looking for an echo chamber. I'm not looking for someone to validate what I believe. I want to get a perspective that allows me, as the leader who is responsible and accountable for the decisions we make, to triangulate on the optimal version of the truth as we know it today. Information will change, things will shift, but as we know it today, based on diverse inputs and perspectives, I have a triangulation on the elements of a decision. And now we're going to make this decision. I'm responsible. I'm accountable. So I do it to remind myself that it is a burden, a responsibility, and a commitment that I have to be the person who gets the smartest people in the room focused on doing the most important work.
Do you pass that on to your leaders that they should feel the same way?
I do.
Okay.
They have to choose to do it, though.
Sure. Sure. That's got to be tough on the ego for a lot of folks in leadership, I would imagine.
Ego is the enemy.
That's well said. All right. Now, I had a chance to listen to one of your episodes in your podcast. I haven't even really told people about your podcast yet, but we'll get to it. But I had a chance to listen to one of your episodes in your podcast, several. But the one about if you're doing it all, you're doing it wrong really kind of hit me. And because I'm one of those idiots, really, who's doing way too much. But I listened to that. And now I'm hearing what you're telling me here. And so I'm going, okay. So this sounds like it's a repetitive, almost tenet of what you're teaching to folks is it's not just the leader's responsibility to be the best leader they can be and to lead by example, but then through their servant leadership, it is to also build up other leaders to be better than you, if that's their potential, because then you are the dumbest guy in the room. Am I putting this
Mm.
all together?
Yeah, you're totally connecting the dots. And, you know, I, one of my mentors once told me, is, two things. One, if um, your greatest strength will become your greatest weakness. Your greatest strength will become your binding constraint if you don't intentionally architect around it. And so, like, if I'm really good at doing something, that means I'm going to hold on to it for too long. It means I'm going to rob from someone else their ability to do that thing that allows them to grow. I had leaders who gave me the opportunity to do things that were way above my pay grade at way too young an age, that would have been probably better and smarter for them to have held on to it. But they gave me the opportunity and let me take the lumps and the bruises and the lessons learned. And so therefore I grew. And so when we're working with leadership teams and when we work with our leaders, we have to give them the opportunity to stretch, grow, and fail. And they're not going to do it as good as we could have done it. But if we hold on to that thing, it becomes a binding constraint for our growth, for our capability to grow other leaders, et cetera. And so when you do it all and you try to keep it all yourself, and I'm guilty of that, right? The other thing that another mentor passed on to me was, when you try to hold on to all of it, when you try to retain it, when you try to, grab onto it so tightly, you're just going to limit what you can do. You can't do it. And, when you try to do it all, you're going to like by default, bottleneck your growth, bottleneck the opportunities. So you've got to let go. I'm laughing inside because I can hear him in the back of my head going, all right, you knucklehead, if you want to be able to grow, if you want to be able to expand this, you've got to let go. And it's hard to do. Like I'll be first to admit, I most often, others, many most often teach what they most desperately need to learn. And it is through the repetitive teaching that we actually learn ourselves. And, there's a saying that I have shared for 20 plus years is when you're tired of talking about it, it's only starting to sink in. And so from a leadership perspective, we're tired because we know it. We've said it 3 times. Why don't they understand? But when we're tired of talking about it, it's just starting to sink in. You have to say it so many times that it echoes. And when it starts to echo, it's really adjusted. So yes, all of that to say, from a leadership perspective, when we teach these things, when we do these things, we've got to learn to let go. Because if we don't, we're binding our own growth. We're binding the organization's growth, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's hard. I still struggle with this. Like I struggle all the time, with can I let this go? Like I'm too OCD. I'm too blah, blah, blah. Is it going to matter a year from now? No, let it go.
Nice. So you talk a lot about, I mean, this whole thing is a lot of trust the process. It's a lot of, let go, trust it's going to get done. There's a lot of trust that people are having to put into the program, into the process that you're teaching. Um, the You seem to have come a long way with it yourself, and again, be leading by example. Is this something that your faith has helped you sort of get through, get under control?
That's a great question. I've never thought about it through that lens. The easy answer is yes. I'm going to have to deconstruct that in my head a little bit.
That's all right.
The answer is yes. And the other part of that answer is, we as human beings, we trust. A great friend of mine, Garland Vance, Dr. Garland Vance, decoded trust for me this way. And he said, hey, trust is built on 3 things. It's built on 3 pillars or 3-legged stool: relational trust, the relationship; integrity trust; and expertise-based trust. So whenever I go to an internal mindset and I go, I don't trust this person, I don't trust this relationship, I don't trust, I immediately go to, okay, which of these 3 pillars is it that's demonstrating or most clear to me? Do I have a relational trust issue, i.e., I don't know them well, I don't know them as a human, they don't know me. We don't really know. Is it an integrity-based trust? Like I have experiential understanding that they don't follow through, that they don't deliver, that there's a gap there between words and actions. Or is there an expertise-based trust, like competency-based, like they don't have the skills, talents, or capabilities to do this thing? So your question around trust for me is like, when it comes to faith, you're not going to get crystal clear answers. It's going to be a deep relational trust, and it's going to be integrity based trust. And it's like, God is the expert. So yes, that's there. But I had to think about, what Tim Keller used to preach, which is God answers the prayers you would pray if you knew everything he knew. And so when you sit there and you go, okay, like that
Yeah.
just wipes the slate clean for around competency and integrity and all these things. So for me, in order to give trust, and trust the process and trust these things, I really have to take it to relational competence and integrity and go, okay, where is it that it might be underserved, and how do I shore that up? What do I need to do in order to address that? I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm going to be stewing on this one for a while.
I think you did, honestly. I love that we got into a conversation about trust, because that was the thing. Talking about faith, in order to believe, you have to surrender. You have to let go because you can't control. And so for leaders out there to say, hey, I'm just going to trust this, they have to somehow let go, but the trust is the whole thing. So I love that. I loved your answer. It's great.
It's so
So
interesting,
thank you.
and especially like for men, like we have societal labels and norms that say this is how we should behave, this is what we should do, this is all these things. And I think so much of our time in life is spent reacting to the expectations of others without understanding our core, whether it's
Mm,
faith, whether it's purpose, whether it's values, whatever that is, and choosing our actions and choosing our reactions and choosing with intent the message we want to send. And I think men are challenged more in this because there's so many, and women too, there's just so many societal norms, and those societal norms change over time. You have to have bedrock. And for me, bedrock is faith. And so when
mm.
I get in my own stuff, in my own head, it's nothing like a Bible, a journal, a good cup of Joe, and a crisp, cool mountain air to clear your head.
Nice. Nice. Very well said. All right. All right. Let's get off that topic real quick. Let's breathe a little bit, little air back in the lungs here for a second, because you do have a podcast out there. Like I said, I've listened to it. It's very good. Leadership Unlocked: The Stories That Shape Great Leaders. Um, you're running your own business now. Did you start this as an arm of the business, or was this because you were trying to satisfy some other, like you wanted to keep learning? What leads you to be doing what you're doing and start the podcast?
Well, there's the selfish answer, and then there's the truth.
All right.
The selfish answer is one of the biggest challenges I had going from leading organizations where I am constantly engaging with people, teaching, learning, et cetera, is there's just not a lot of human interaction. Like it's a different type of human interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're leading and coaching leaders, and when you are, doing what I do today on a professional side, I don't own the outcomes. I own the inputs. And so therefore, I don't own those results that others create. And so selfishly, I wanted to build something. I wanted to own the outputs and let something be of the quality and style and things that I wanted. And I've had people for years say, "Hey, you should start a podcast. You should like we love having conversations with you because like today I'm talking way more than I ever talk when I'm doing a guest interview on my podcast because I
Right.
love to learn." The selfish part of it truly is I'm a nerd. So I just want to learn from other great leaders. And this gives me a platform to reach out to really cool people and learn about their stories. Like I don't want to podcast and it was very adamant. Like I didn't want to create a podcast about leadership where all I did was interview CEOs who've been successful and say, how'd you do it? Blah, blah, blah. Who
Right.
cares? I interviewed Coach Bill Ferran last week. Coach Bill Ferran, strength and conditioning coach for the Miami Heat for 32 years. He brought physical conditioning to the NBA. Like he's the guy that really brought this and revolutionized how strength and conditioning happens in the NBA. Fascinating conversation. One of the most humble human beings I've ever met in my life, filled with gratitude. And I'm just soaking it in because I'm selfish. I just want to learn. Like that's principally the reason. From a business perspective, you know what? I decided that if this allows others to hear a message that matters in a time and space that matters to them, and I never do anything, I never hear from them, I never get any connection from them, totally cool with that. I have a firm belief that in order to um, be successful, you have to do stuff that scares you. And my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to impact the lives of 100 million people. I have zero idea how I'm going to do that. I have no concept, no clue, no like. That scares me. But a podcast, it's just one little arrow from the quiver, and I'll never know how many people that it impacted. Don't care if it hits the words hit somebody that at a time that matters for them. Super cool. So those were my motivations, and saying them out loud, they're probably pretty selfish.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a selfish goal that serves others, right?
I hope so.
There you go. So I guess it's all in the packaging, but I love the answer. I'm a professional podcaster. This is what I do for a living. So it's resonating deeply with me, what you're talking about right now. I love the conversations and the interaction and everything else. And very selfish of me. I get to have 10 to 12 conversations a day with people like you that I get to just learn from. So it's very fulfilling. So that rings true with me, hearing that. But you just dropped another, huge nugget there, and that is not a goal that just comes to you out of nowhere necessarily. That's not a goal that people would take lightly. Where did that goal come from?
That goal honestly came from me sitting down and, as I started my business going, all right, what is a goal that will scare me? And, I went, I think I want to impact the lives of 10 million leaders, 10 million leaders. And I wrote that down a year ago. And I look back on I have a quarterly, an annual and a quarterly review process. So I look back at my notes from a year ago. This is maybe 2 quarters ago. And I went, well, that's kind of BS. That's weak. Like, come on, if 10 million, that's good. What would it take to do 10x that? So 100 million. And so, like, I would like to say that there's some quantitative formulaic thing where I say, well, if I do this and this and this, but I don't believe in building to something. I believe in setting something and working backwards because that's what scares you. And so that was the process. I was like, you know what? If I start this journey out of a place of fear of not having done the things that, leverage the gifts I've been given, or, I'm working to earn, then I need to do stuff that scares me and I need to get out of my own way. And you know what? At the end of the day, if it's 100 million or if it's 1 million, it doesn't really matter. If it's one, that's just the coolest thing. I'll admit, like, one of the coolest thing I've had so far in recording a podcast is listening to an episode that I did with a guest from the UK on the power of joy with my 16-year-old daughter, and her going, "This is cool. Can we keep listening?" Like, I'm done, man. Like, that's the coolest thing that's ever happened to me is when your
Oh yeah.
daughter says, "Hey, Dad, you're great and all. I don't want to hear your stuff, but can we listen to her?" And it was because I had that conversation, and it was like, that's as good as it gets. And it's, by the way, it's all I can do not to just flip the script on you and ask you a bazillion questions. And so I'm going to have you on my show so I can do that.
Anytime. Anytime. You got that. All right. Appreciate that. Yeah. And I appreciate you not flipping the script just yet. So we got a few more things to talk about you. This is about you now. You're in the guest chair.
I
So,
hope it's about your audience.
all right. This is true. Um, all right. I love that, first of all, about the podcast. And, I'm an empty nester with 3 kids too. So wow. I mean, you're killing me, man. You're going to make me tear up right now because, yeah, when all my kids, they all had that one moment where they actually recognize what it is I do. And every single moment of those, like all 3 of them had that one moment where
Mm,
just they were like, man, this is what you do, Dad. And they kind of got it.
yeah.
Oh my, it just hit you so hard. It's like, yes, this is what I do all day, every day. It was really, really cool. All right, I'm going to wipe these tears away and get to another question here. But you talk about helping leaders find clarity, trading burnout for that clarity. Uh, when I hear burnout, one of the things that I wonder is, what leads to these corporate leaders having this type of burnout today? Because if you understand the cause, maybe you know how to go back and fix it.
Mhm.
And so, in your experience with the people you're dealing with, what is the leading or the couple of leading causes of just burning out, for these folks that you have to deal with and overcome?
Not to make it too simple,
Sure.
but I'll just drill right to what I think is the number one cause: an inability to say no. An
Inability to
inability,
say no.
an inability to say no. And here's why I say that. Burnout is caused by a lack of prioritization, the lack of identifying what's most important, and the relentless ability to say no to anything that isn't associated with what's most important. And so when we can connect the dots between the most important work and why we're here, and we can say no to those other things, and there's 3 answers to any question. There's yes, no, or not yet. And I think that most of the leaders I work with, and myself most especially included here, is we take on too much, we get distracted, we don't focus on the most important things. And so therefore we're constantly running, we're running, and we never get the momentum we could on the flywheel that matters for the most important thing. And so we say yes to too many good things, but not we don't say yes to only the most important things. And so in order to achieve amazing, terrific, incredible results, and that can be as simple as being present for your kid's game, you've got to say no to good things. And leaders, myself most especially included, are not good at saying no to good things. You have to say no to good things. The only way to be able to do that is to have prioritized in advance what's most important, that enables you with grace, with dignity, with kindness, and with love to say no to everything that's not that. There's a
Wow.
great story from Warren Buffett, whose pilot was asking him, how do I become successful? His, corporate pilots worked for him for like 15 years. And Warren says, okay, I want you to sit down and make a list of the 20 most important things you're going to do in your life, your goals for your life, the 20 things. And so he did that. And he said, okay, I want you to put them in order. He said, and so he did that. And he goes, okay, Warren asked him, so how are you going to work on these? Well, these are my top 5, and then I'll work on the others as I have time. And Warren said, no, absolutely not. You circle the first 3 things on that list, and everything else on that list is your avoid at all cost. You avoid those things because they are what distracts you. They're good things. And there may be a time and a place for them, but those are the things that distract you from those first 3 things. So I think that burnout first and principally comes from a lack of focus on the most important things, and the time, effort, and energy that is necessary to invest to be able to identify those things. And then, like, that's symptom cause number 1. Then I'll pause and let you drill into it. But pause number 2 is if you're doing work you just don't care about. Like, if you're doing work that just doesn't fill your cup, like it's not who you are, you're just grinding. And grinding, when you love it, when you have purpose for it, it's just what fills you. That's not work.
Right.
It's joy. It is. It's just the metaphor that comes to mind. There is, are you embracing a missionary lifestyle or a mercenary? And I've always said I want missionaries on my leadership teams, not mercenaries. I need people who are going to evangelize because they believe, that they're not going to go speak because they're paid. And
Right.
there's a huge distinction. So I'll pause there, but those, like, super passionate area for me. Those are the 2 principal causes that I say.
That's huge. Um, I love the inability to say no answer. That goes back almost to that podcast episode I was talking about, where
Mm.
if you're doing it all, you're doing it wrong, type of thing. But the second one, the missionary mercenary deal, I think most men at this point, and I'm categorizing,
We all
I'm
do it.
generalizing, right? But I think we all are mercenaries at some point
Mm-hmm.
because we have to do things we don't like to do just to pay bills, right? And I think every guy out there wishes that they could be a missionary in some way. But the people who are full-time missionaries aren't paid that great either. So
Mm-mm.
you got to take care of life. Um, have you had an instance? And if you have, what happened or how do you handle it? Where you're coaching leadership with somebody, in a corporation, and they are just a mercenary and they're burned out because they just hate the job. They don't want to be there. I mean, what do you do as a leadership coach in that situation?
I have specific cases where this has happened when I was, in corporate leadership roles, CEO or president. And I think it ties very clearly back to the servant leadership principle, where I can have a conversation with someone and say, Rory, I love you. You're burned out because this isn't the right work for you. This isn't where you feel successful. My perception is based on the things that I see. Here's the symptoms, the behaviors, et cetera. So I want you to understand that this is what I see. And I want you to know and feel empowered that if this isn't the right place for you, I will do everything within my power to ensure that you can land somewhere that is the right place, whether it's in the organization and you just happen to be in the wrong seat, or it's out of the organization at a whole, because I am doing you a disservice as a leader if I don't enable you to be successful. But let's just be really, really clear. The role here demands this. And the way you show up isn't congruent with that role. And I would be remiss in serving you if I didn't bring this to your attention and I didn't share with you what I'm thinking about. Again, my job as a leader is to be kind, not nice. And so I've got to be very clear. And so I've had those situations where you have to coach somebody and say, look, this is what I've seen. This is what I hear. I think like these, let's dig in. Is it burnout because you're taking on too much? Is it burnout because you haven't said no? Is it burnout because this isn't the right space or place for you? This isn't the right role. And that may be my fault. Like the first assumption is it's my fault. I've set somebody up for fail. Like that's the leadership principle 101. It's on me. And so, like, have I put you in a place where I'm asking you to do something that's outside of your, cone of genius, where you create the most value? And if that's the case, well, shame on me. I need to move this around. And so I always like to think about through the lens of, do I have cultural alignment, the core values, not the words, the behaviors? And then do I have the right skills, talents, and capabilities in the right seat? And you got to get both. So there are cases where you have to have those frank, clear but kind conversations. And there are cases where you help somebody make a better decision for them, and it can be leaving the organization. Or there are cases where you just go, man, dude, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I put you in a place where you're not set up for success. I'm asking you to, you're a cheetah, and I'm asking you to be a draft horse. This isn't going to work. Like, no wonder you're burned out. Let's find you in the right agent space and place. And depending on the size of organizations, depending on right, all the technical things, you may or may not be able to do that.
Hmm. Can someone be coached out of that when you get all the way down to the brass tacks? In your opinion, can someone actually be coached out of that, or is it hey, this really is we've dug into it, we've found out why you burned out, this is it? Is it a time to go type of scenario?
Yeah, I would say I would answer it like this. Um, you can present people with the information they need to make the choices that will matter for them. And that's what coaching is. You present information that enables others to make choices. The choice is still theirs. And if you've done a great job of presenting information in a convicting, compelling way that allows them to make a choice that changes their behavior, their outcomes, the things that they're doing, then the answer is yes. But it is purely and totally contingent upon their ability to reconcile what's important and make necessary choices to change or amend behavior or to change or amend situations, et cetera. I mean, I have had people, honestly, that I have had to release. I've only fired two people in my entire career, but I've had several that have had to make a release for other employment. And like, I'm delighted that I'm still in touch with them. Like they happily, genuinely, we have a personal relationship because it was in their best interest. But they weren't willing to make a choice, or the choice that was necessary wasn't aligned with their value system. Okay, like that's no shame there. But the job of the coach isn't to inflict my values on someone else, it's to give them information so they can make better choices about what's important to them.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes total sense. Got it. That do you find that's heavy to carry that around with what you do?
Yeah, it is if you care. And so, yes, it is.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you seem like a guy who cares. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I do. And it is heavy, but it's not about me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Now you've got I know you have something here, a quick 9-question quiz, and this is for people who are like wondering. Uh, that's a question. Is this for people who are wondering, do I need this kind of help? Can I benefit from this kind of help? Who needs to look at this 9-question quiz that you have out there, and ponder that?
Yeah, if you're the way I would answer that is if you are leading others, even if you're just leading yourself, but you have a persistent state of tension, like that there's more, that you could achieve, you have a gap. Like I see three common pain points all the time. I see people who are frustrated that their vision and the results don't match. Like that's pain point number one. I see the pain point number two is they're the bottleneck. Everything ends up on their plate, and they're just like they're in that burnout cycle. It's like, why is it all ending up on me? And then pain point number three that I see all the time is isolation. Like leadership is lonely for a reason. That's a whole long topic thread we can get into. But that nine question, what I built was if you are wrestling with a gap in your mind from where you are, from where you want to be, and you want some type of compass that'll help you determine where you should go next. That's why I put this easy assessment together, and it's excuse me, I put it very easy to remember, burnout to breakout. Like, how do I go from burnout to breakout.com? And you can just take this assessment if that's a struggle that you're dealing with. The best thing is when I have someone take it and they come in and they say, "Hey, look, Noah, it gives you a quick quiz answer. You're in great shape. Here's other new things you should be thinking about. Here's how you get to that next level." So those are the types of things that we want to help leaders decode. And the reason I made it nine questions and very simple is we don't need harder things in life. We need simpler, clearer things that allow you to ask the next right question. That's what's really important.
Excellent. Okay. And so somebody goes in, they're feeling the way you're talking about right now. They take this quiz. Then what?
They'll get the answer of where they are, and they'll get a couple of quick things to think about and how they can learn more. And we put tons of free resources on the website, and there's all kinds of stuff that they can get. Really, what I want to empower, enable leaders to do is, what's the right next question? What's the right next place to look? And I love having conversations. I'll schedule conversations with people all the time and say, "Hey, look, here's what's going on. What do I think about? What do I need to do? Like, here's three questions I might think about, and here's one book, podcast thing I might read, and then let's talk about it again." Like, it's no obligation for me. I do what I do for a living because it's so much fun being able to have those conversations. And I love it when somebody calls me back, 6 months or a year later and says, "Holy crap, that changed my life." Awesome, dude. I'm putting you in that 1 out of 100 million category.
Nice. Nice. Well, that seems like a pretty simple window into what you do, in order to be able to say, hey, maybe you can help me, maybe you can't, without feeling like they're being, sort of required to follow through. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty easy.
So pretty easy. And like prescription is not what we do. We make recommendations. I want to be very careful that, my job as a leader and as a coach, and this has been my entire life, is I can't prescribe, but I can give you things to think about and choices that you can make, right? A doctor can prescribe a medicine that may or may not, depending on the person's biology, change the outcome. We're not doctors here. I'm not prescribing a medicine, but I am exposing things that allow a person to think so they can make a different choice.
Nice. I was going to start wrapping with that question, but then you dropped one more, of course, because every time you answer your question, you drop another, nugget for me. But you mentioned that leadership is lonely,
Mm.
and with what you do, I'd love to hear. Is it supposed to be? And well, why is it lonely, and is it supposed to be?
Well, one is the why is it lonely is a loaded question. So I'll tackle that one first. It's lonely because in some cases you can't share as a leader the things that are on your mind, because leadership is leading by example. Like, you have to be confident. You have to show, you need to, if you're worried about something, you can't go to the front line of your organization and say, "I'm extremely worried that we may not be in business next year unless I get this next decision right." Because then everybody's going to be in a panic. Like, we have to be calm. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't think it. That doesn't mean you may not have people in your senior leadership team that you're having these real, candid, frank, vulnerable conversations with. But leadership is lonely in many cases because it's self-inflicted. We don't know how to curate a mentor network, a group of others who are better than us, sharper than us, have different experiences than us, perspectives than we do. And so in many cases, we're taught and trained that we're supposed to have the answers, that once you get into a leadership role, it is incumbent upon you to have all the answers. The most powerful leader words a leader can say are, I don't know. That's a great question. Let's find out. Like that's how okay, we can build trust. We can build reinforce that. So the reason leadership is lonely is because it's self-inflicted in many, many cases. And in some cases, it's necessary. Yeah, can't talk. It's a necessity. We just can't, be a full open kimono with everything that's going on. And so that's a challenge. And so leadership can be isolating in that regard. And I think it is. And I think it's not just a catchphrase. It absolutely is lonely and isolating, et cetera, because many cases necessity, in many cases it's that self-infliction. I haven't curated a group because I'm supposed to know. I'm supposed to have all the answers. No, you're not. You're absolutely not. What's the second part of your question? Now I got on a rant. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it. That was a great answer. Is it supposed to be lonely?
No, it is absolutely not supposed to be. Um, you have to have a degree of humility, though. It's like that, maybe a first principle thing of saying, I don't know all the answers. And so therefore I need to curate a group of mentors. And like I've had the privilege and benefit for over 20 years of belonging in to different types of forums or groups. It's one of the reasons I make those a cornerstone of our offerings is because I know the power of having like-minded, sharp leaders in a room for iron to sharpen iron. And is it it's not supposed to be that way, but you have to show up with humility. You have to show up with vulnerability. You have to show up with courage to say, I don't know all the answers. And it's so interesting. Like we we take coaching for granted in sports. Like Michael Jordan had a coach. Tiger Woods had a coach. The greatest athletes always have coaches. Why? Because they can't read the label from inside the jar. You can't see what's going on, and you need someone to see what's going on. And sometimes they can see it physically. They can see the manifestation of, hey, you're dropping your shoulder, you're doing this, you're doing that. That's well and good. Sometimes it's the mental. Hey, here's the tick you had. Here's how you're approaching the ball. It's clear you're frustrated. Like, I'm watching how you grip. Like there's all these things. In business, in life, we're not taught how to have a coach. And so when I work with leaders all the time, in fact, I just had a conversation with someone last week. They said, I don't know how to use a coach. I've never had a coach. How do I use a coach? And, like, what are the questions that are on your mind? What are the things that are bothering you? If you're not willing and able to expose those, then you're going to be lonely because you've got to capture all this stuff in your head and you can't answer it all. So it's not supposed to be, it doesn't have to be. And you have to be willing and humble to curate a mentor group. And it can be friends, it can be mentors. I still have a coach. Like I desperately probably have three, if I'm being really honest, um, help me read the label from inside the jar.
I love that expression. I'm stealing that. I
Please do.
haven't heard that before, but I'm officially letting everybody know I'm stealing that expression.
Well, I stole it from somebody. I just don't know who. And I'm a
Okay.
huge believer in R&D, rip off and duplicate.
All right. Right. All right. Before we get to our last wrap up question, how can folks contact you? Best ways to reach you, that type of thing.
Best way to reach me would be personally directly would be on LinkedIn, just Dusty Holcomb. You can go to our website, arcqusgroup.com, ARCQUS group.com. Check out our podcast, Leadership Unlocked. And I'm an open book. I just encourage people to reach out to me. If you've got a question, just Dusty at arcqusgroup.com. I'll get some spam. I don't care because if one person gets impacted, totally cool with that.
Nice. All right, perfect. Last question. I'm going to let you go, I promise. I appreciate you being on as long as you have and for sharing everything that you have and, diving deep on some of these answers. You've been a great sport. And
I love it. This
honestly,
was fun.
you're a great guest. So I appreciate you. But we unpack so much that I want to make sure that there isn't something that, is there anything that we missed? Is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there something that maybe we talked about, but you want to double down on and make sure you leave with folks? Or maybe is there a nugget or a leave behind, some advice that you want to just leave to our listeners, our men who are listening to this program? I'm going to give you the floor for a moment or two here to kind of wrap us up. Dusty, go for it.
I think I would be remiss if we wrapped here without having really put a circle or a ring fence around this to say what I've talked about and what we have talked about and the questions you've asked can be very inspirational. They can be very motivational. They can be very, okay, that's great, but how do I actually do it? And with the encouragement I would give anyone listening, any of your men listening, is like, we aren't there. You're never going to get there, but you are going to have an opportunity to make one different decision today that advances you closer to where you want to be. So don't listen to this stuff and, hear some blowhard talking about, here's what all you need to do. It's simple. It's not simple. It's not easy. You don't have to solve it all at once. You have to make one decision at a time in accordance with your values and in accordance to what's important to you to be slightly better. I love the James Clear approach, from Atomic Habits, 1% better every day. Like that, it's the compounding effect of these decisions that we make, these choices that we make that are so incredibly important. If it's a mentor that you need, if it's loneliness and isolation that you need, you don't need to go build this grand thing and have this whole network of people. You just need to pick up a phone and call somebody and say, hey, look, I've got a question and I'm wrestling with something. Would you give me 10 minutes? Would you give me a few minutes of your precious time to help me do something? So I think it's just so easy to take talk and miss the point. And the entire point is, if you want to be a more impactful, purposeful, intentional, meaningful dad, father, leader, husband, whatever it is, you don't have to do it and solve it. You just have to make the next choice slightly better than the last one. And look, I'm going to screw up 1,000 times today, but I'm going to try to screw up a little less than I did yesterday and a little less than I did the day before. And that would be, I think I'd be remiss in not decoding everything we've said to say, that's great. Just identify what's important. Make one better choice today. And I don't care if it's as simple as listening to this podcast and forward it to a friend and going, hey, this resonated, or any other episode that you've shared. This resonated. I'd like to come back and visit this, and let's grab coffee and talk about it. Like, it's as simple as that. And so that would be the thing that, when we wrap this all up at the end of the day, life is a series of compounding choices, and you get a chance in every moment to create a compound effect. You also get a chance to make a negative compounding effect too. It's okay. I'm going to make a lot of bad choices today, but I'm going to try to not repeat them. So that'd be the thing that I'd really want to leave your audience encouraged by and motivated to, is just think about that one next best choice. And then if you did nothing else, then think about the world through the lens of a very simple metaphor of the circuit breaker. And I love this metaphor, especially with, as a guy and as an audience of men, of which I'm one. Like, I need a circuit breaker. I wish I had installed the circuit breaker mechanisms I have now 20, 30 years ago. What I mean by that is, going back to Viktor Frankl, I have the power to choose in the environment and external stimuli. I get to choose my response. Whatever it is that you need to do that gives yourself the moment to pause and choose that response, that one next decision, just think about it through the metaphor, the lens of a circuit breaker. The breaker just flipped. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to go hit the GFCI button. I'm going to reset before I respond, before I choose, before whatever. Because get out of that reaction state. Hit the circuit breaker, reset, and then make your decision. And I program that in my head. Is this a circuit breaker moment? And I'll sometimes lose my temper or whatever with my kids, or something happens, right? And you go, and then you go, circuit breaker moment. Whatever this thing is isn't going to matter a year from now, but how I react might. Flip the switch.
Yeah.
That's what I'd leave you with.
Great wrap up, brother. I love that circuit breaker. That's another thing I'm stealing from you, like right
Please
now.
do.
So it's I've gotten all kinds of content from this. Boy, it's beautiful. So,
This
all
has been
right.
fun. Rory, it's obvious you're a pro, so thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Dusty. I appreciate that. Five-time Ironman, founder of the Arcqus Group and host of Leadership Unlocked, the stories that shape great leaders podcast, Dusty Holcomb. And Dusty, feelings mutual. I had a great time, learned a lot, and thank you so much for being on. It's really been great.
I can't wait to flip the script on you.
Awesome. I'm there. Folks, this has been another incredible episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason we bring these powerful men on here with such powerful messages is because we're united in you regaining your power so that you can be, just like Dusty was just talking about, a better provider, a better protector, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, to be a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason we want this for you is because you matter, you have value, and you're worth it. You just have to believe it. Until next time.